Okay, now to let you know what I did for the next part, the two cross arms, I put the 24 gauge wire, you can see it there. I cut a piece long enough to go through both the crossbars plus the pole and have a little bit extra left over, okay? And I put that wire then on through the pole, all right? On the crossbars, I glued in the four angle brackets. You can see those there, and you can see where the hole that I drilled is pointing up, you know, up or down, okay? Then, once I got those in place, I glued in the crossbars, those four 2x4 pieces, and I just glued those in, connecting them between the crossbar and the pole. And I just put them on top of each other and such, okay? So that sort of holds the glue will hold the poles in place. The wire going through also does that. And if you notice also, I bent the wire up at a 90-degree angle on either side. Okay. So that sort of also helps hold the pole in place. The next thing I'm going to be doing is cutting 4 pieces of the wire and putting those through those 4 holes on top of the L brackets. Okay. And then I'm going to be installing, if I can zoom in here a minute. Let's see if I can find them here quick. There they are. There's one. I have these very small beads, and I'm going to be installing those on the wires that I'm going to put in those 4 wires on the L brackets. And I'm probably going to do just 3 of these beads. And I also have blue beads here. Let me see if I can pull one of those out to show you what they are. You see those things, and you see they're very small. I got to use tweezers to pick those things up. I'm going to slip those over the wires, and I'm going to glue them in place with Elmer's glue. Just a dab, a little bit on the end of a toothpick is all I really need. Once I put those 3 beads on there, then I'm going to put a dab of Elmer's glue over top of the beads to help hold them onto the pole so they don't fall off. And I'll tell you, that can be a chore. That's probably the toughest part of the build. You have to really need a lot of patience. Patience is a virtue when it comes to putting these things on those wires. Believe me. But it's fun. It's a challenge. Okay, remember last time we were putting the beads on, and I have all the beads in place now, and they're glued in, and they're nice and solid and all. I put a little dab of white glue, just a small dab on the top of the wire and on the bottom of the wire. That way the beads won't fall off. I can shake it and do all kinds of good stuff, and the beads will stay there. Now, next thing what I did was I started to build a second cross arm. That's going to be a little bit lower. So I made this cross arm 1.5 inches, okay? And instead of drilling the holes with the L brackets, little L brackets that I use, I drilled holes directly through the cross arm, and I cut 2 little pieces of 24 gauge wire, drilled a hole. I bent the wire 90 degrees, if you can see that or not. So I bent them 90 degrees, and I glued those. On the top. And you know, that way, and on the bottom a little bit, that way those are held in place pretty much, and they're not going to wiggle around and fall out when I get done. I'm going to be putting maybe 2 or 3 insulators, little blue things, on these wires, and again I'll glue those in place just like I did with the cross arm. And I'll use I have a couple little 2x4 inch brackets that I made, and I'm just going to be gluing those onto the pole and the second cross arm. Eventually, then I'll do the third bar across is going to hold the transformers. And I don't think I had the right size, so I'm going to have to do a transformer that's a little bit bigger. But we'll get into that in a few. We'll get into that shortly. Okay, I attached that second cross arm. Okay, and I installed the three little the little insulators, little blue things on the wires. But you notice they're going the opposite direction, a 90-degree. And that's what I want. Eventually, what I'm going to do is run monofilament wire from the top on this side, the top wire, down to that second wire, and then into the transformers. Okay, the transformers. I'm going to use a channel bracket for the to mount the transformers on. Okay, you can use various things, but I'm going to use a angle bracket or channel bracket for that. This is the size of the transformer that I'm going to have to use, which is 3/8 inch. Okay, normally I'll use 5/16 inch, which is a 1/16 inch smaller. The 5/16 inch tubing number is Evergreen 320. Or, I'm sorry, 230. Evergreen 230. This one is a little bit bigger. It's 3/8 inch. But for now, it's basically just to demonstrate the process, so it should be okay yet. Okay, I cut the transformer out of that 3/8 inch tubing. Okay, and here along the front of the cable or transformer, I drilled in two small holes and marked them with black a black marker so I knew where they were. Okay, I also took a piece of the 040 by 060 and I glued that onto the back of the transformer using the Fowler's glue. Okay, the Fowler's glue is this stuff right here. Okay, I added two little insulators or to each. I drilled in two holes in the top of the transformer, and again ran 24 gauge wire down there, and then I glued these insulators onto the 24 gauge wire. Okay, and I made two of these transformers. All right, now over here I did the channel, and again I drilled a hole through the center of the channel, and I took a couple pieces of small 040 by 060 and I glued those in place, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to glue the transformers onto this channel. Okay, and the hole in the center of the channel. The channel here is 1 inch long, and it's I drilled a hole about 1/2 inch in, about the center point of it. And of course, I'm going to use a 24 gauge wire to attach the channel bracket, with the transformers onto the pole, which I already drilled a hole in the pole. Okay, I also wanted to make a quick mention that the top of the transformer I used plain styrene, about 15 thousandths of an inch thick, and I glued the top of the transformer onto the styrene. When it's set, then I cut a little square out of the styrene, because the styrene is like this. I cut a small square out, and then I clipped around it to cut off the excess styrene, and then I filed it down to make it more round on the top. Okay, I mounted the transformers on the pole, and I also added this tube that is a very narrow tube that goes down along the side of the pole. It's going to, route the wires down toward maybe power boxes and such like that, closer to the ground. Okay. The little straps that you see that are holding that tube in place, I glued the tube in place with the Fowler's glue, but the paper, I just use paper to attach the tube to the pole. Okay, and I just cut that from strips of paper, very thin, used Elmer's glue, and just glued it onto the pole, and then I squeezed where they come together over here, I sort of squeezed that together with tweezers to make it tight. So the next thing coming up would be, wiring and a little bit of cables and such. Okay. Now, like I said, back here for the wiring, and you might be able to see it here, it's behind the Fowler's glue. It's like I said, I use monofilament copper wire, and it's very, very, very thin. All right, and I'm also going to use 20 thousandths inch rod to do a little bit thicker cables.